Good afternoon. This is Dr. Cooper, and this is a quick podcast for the ENH114 for African American literature class. I almost forgot what class this was. All right, I want to quickly go over the solo project because you have your proposals due soon, and I want to make sure that everybody's clear about what it is that you're going to do. So if you haven't done so already, go ahead and click into the solo project contemporary writers assignment. To get to that, just go to modules and scroll all the way to the bottom, and you'll see solo project, and you'll be able to get into that assignment. Now, the key thing to remember is that in this assignment and this project that you're working on, we're following along in a pattern here. And so the time period is very important. So what you'll see is that we start out with oral traditions. This was before writing was popular among African Americans. And then we go into the slavery era, and we're reading about the writings of the slavery era, people who wrote back in that time period. Then we're going to move into Reconstruction, which is up into the 1865 to the early 1900s. Then we do the Harlem Renaissance and civil rights and black art. So you kind of get the picture here that we're moving along in time. So when we get to the solo project, that's contemporary period. Contemporary period means now. So you can sort of see that we left off in 1975. So what I want for you to do when you start to look for an author in the contemporary period is to choose authors post-Civil War or era, so post-1960s. So that means people who were writing during that time. That means that generally they're still alive. Some may have died recently, but it doesn't matter if they're alive or not. It's about when they were writing, and that's what we consider contemporary writers. So the key thing that you want to do is go in and do a Google search. So I did a Google search. I love Google. I tried one using Bing, and it didn't bring up some of the same sites that I see here. But you'll see that there's a bunch of different choices that you can choose from with lists of African American contemporary writers. So when I click on this first one, there's a nice list here, and I'll post this in the site with this announcement, so you can choose from this list if you want to. But all of these writers on this list are contemporary writers. Now, keep in mind that this is a mostly fiction list, and if you don't want to read fiction, you don't have to, but I would suggest that you do. And the reason why I suggest that you read fiction is that part of your solo project deals with doing not just a literary analysis, but talking about and defining literary terms. And it's difficult to do that if a person is just writing nonfiction. So let me go ahead and change that and say, please choose fiction. So these authors write mostly fiction, and as you can see, it's a list of 100 and plus contemporary authors. Some of them you will recognize as very popular, like Maya Angelou and James Baldwin. Okay, but you might want to take a quick look at some of the more contemporary ones, meaning the ones that are writing today. Maya Angelou is not writing today, and many of the stuff that she wrote about was pre-civil rights era. So although she's contemporary, her themes are going to fall back into a module topic that we've already covered. So be aware of that. Okay, now James Baldwin falls into that category as well. However, he talks more about being a black man and the struggle in that area. So that could be a good one. I still think that there's others that are much better to look at. Now, on this particular list, don't be confused that these authors have written more than just what's listed here. Okay, so for Tony Kade Bambara, which is one of my favorites, right here you'll see short stories, and then there's a list of list or a text of short stories. Well, this author has written other things as well, so you don't have to choose what's listed here. You can go in and choose some of their other works as well. So go ahead and take a look at this list, or go back and look at some of the other lists and choose an author. Now remember, the authors, and I like this one too because these are very young black authors, and they're writing about the struggles of today. So, you know, take a look at some of these authors. Now the key thing here is you want to make sure that you can get their books. So some of the ones that are a little more well-known, it'll be easy to get a book out of the library. Some of the newer contemporary writers, like this list here, you might have to buy the book from Amazon. Not that that would be expensive, but just keep that in mind if you are on a budget. Okay, so let's go back to the assignment. So again, what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that you are following the assignment prompts. So the first thing is that when you do your project, okay, go away, you want to make sure that you are covering the project objectives. And these are all of the things that you need to do in your solo project. Now, what I've done to help you along is that as you go throughout the semester, I've given you all of these SP assignments. Well, they all relate to these project objectives. So when I ask for you to do a literary analysis, one of them when you get to solo project 4, SP assignment 4, what you're doing is analyzing and presenting results of independent reading. So you are going to choose a novel to read from that author that you chose. But remember, some authors might have several texts that you want to tackle, so you can read several of those. And I'm talking about smaller texts. You know, no one's going to be reading War and Peace or some of the other longer things. But if you have a really long one, obviously you want to just choose one. But if your author has several short texts, you can do that. Or if your author does poetry or short stories, you can do that as well. And then, of course, you can choose a theme. Now, what I mean by a theme is if you choose something like a theme where the black male struggle in modern day America, well, there might be several authors who write about that. So you've chosen a theme, and then you're going to explore 2 or 3 authors that write on that theme. So it's up to you to choose what you want to do, but you are going to be reading something. So you have to analyze and present results of that independent reading. And that's going to happen early on in the semester. SP4, you need to show that you're reading. I also want to see that you're doing research, so you need to make sure that you're citing and collecting all of the research that you're doing as you go along, because, let me show you again, you need a variety of scholarly sources gathered. So you're not going to just rely on the web. You're going to use books, periodical articles, and reference materials. So I will guide you through that when you do a research assignment. So here's a research assignment right here. And I teach you how to go to the library, search for those archaic books, blow the dust off, and look at those. Because what you're writing about, a lot of times these books are going to be valuable for that. Also, scholarly periodical articles. I'm going to show you how to search the databases to find those. So you're not going to just use websites. So everything is working together to help you be successful in this solo project. But keep in mind that your mode of delivery for this multimedia presentation, which is your solo project, needs to be the blog that you created. Now, if you're not going to use the blog and you're going to create a website or use some sort of a wiki, you need to let me know now. But right now, I'm expecting that that blog that you created in SP1 is your solo project. And as you go through and do these solo project assignments, I'm expecting to see this work show up on that blog. Okay? So make sure that you go through this assignment looking at all of the objectives. And if you do all of these assignments, then you probably will hit all of these objectives. Okay? Now, here's the key thing to remember. When you do the SP assignments, they're only worth 3 points. That's just so you can let me know that you're working on the assignment. I'm not expecting for these to be fully the way that I would expect to see them when I look at the solo project. So let me give you an example. When I ask you to do a working bibliography in SP3, I'm only asking for you to put 2 or 3 things on it, because that's all you have at that point. But when you do your solo project and you post your working bibliography on your solo project, it should have anywhere from 8 to 10 sources minimum for that assignment. So you're going to get 3 points for 2 or 3, but when I grade the solo project, if you still only have 2 or 3, you're getting 0 for that. Okay, same thing when I ask you to do your literary analysis. A literary analysis is like a short essay. On your solo project, your final solo project, that analysis should be anywhere from 300 to 500 words. But when you do your SP assignment, I'm looking for 100 to 200. So some of you will do the whole thing right up front, and that's fine. Others of you will do just a little piece of it, maybe the first paragraph or so of it, and you'll finish it later. That's your choice. I'll give you 3 points if I've seen that you started and that you've done enough of it to warrant that 3 points. Okay, so if you have any other questions about your projects, let me know, but I hope that is helpful.